The Mist. Frank Darabont's 2007 adaptations of Stephen King's novella deliver one of the most devastating endings in horror cinema history. Directed by Darabont and released on November 21, 2007 by Dimension Films, the film stars Thomas Jane, Marcia Gay Harden, and Laurie Holden. The story follows a group trapped in a supermarket in Bridgeton, Maine after a mysterious mist conceals deadly Lovecraftian creatures. The mist was caused by Project Arrowhead, a failed military experiment that opened portals to other dimensions. Darabont created an entirely new ending not found in King's original novella, and King praised it highly, stating that people who spoil the ending should be hung by the neck until dead. The film grossed $57.3 million worldwide. In the final scene, protagonist David shoots 4 people in his car, including his son Billy, believing he's sparing them from the monsters. Moments after the killings, the military arrives, clearing the mist and rescuing survivors. A woman David had refused to help earlier appears alive with her 2 children on a rescue truck. David collapses in anguish, realizing everyone died needlessly if he had waited just minutes longer. This ending explores how fear and despair destroy humanity more effectively than literal monsters, with the cruel irony of the timing making it one of cinema's bleakest conclusions, where mercy becomes ultimate tragedy. Night Living Dead. George Romero's 1968 zombie classic created the modern zombie genre while delivering a shocking ending that doubled as civil rights commentary. Directed by Romero and premiered on October 1, 1968 at the Fulton Theater in Pittsburgh, the film was made on a budget of $114,000 and grossed over $30 million worldwide. It stars Dwayne Jones as Ben, one of the first black actors to lead a major horror film. 7 people become trapped in a Pennsylvania farmhouse, surrounded by ghouls, with Ben serving as the calm, rational, resourceful protagonist who survives the entire night while others perish. All other characters die throughout the film, with Karen reanimating to kill her mother and Johnny returning as a zombie to kill Barbara. When morning arrives, and a sheriff-led posse sweeps the area killing remaining ghouls, Ben emerges from the cellar, only to be immediately shot in the head by the posse, who mistake him for a ghoul. Final scenes show Ben's body being dragged out and burned with other corpses in stark still photographs. Released during the height of the civil rights movement only months after Martin Luther King Jr.'s assassination, the film's ending transcends horror to become powerful social commentary. Ben's death at the hands of a white militia, despite being the hero who did everything right, reflects brutal realities of systemic racism in 1968 America, making this survival story one where capability and intelligence cannot overcome prejudice and violence. Perfect Storm. Wolfgang Petersen's 2000 disaster epic tells the true story of the Andrea Gale fishing vessel caught in the perfect storm of 1991, where all 6 crew members perished at sea. Released on June 30, 2000, the film was directed by Petersen and based on Sebastian Junger's 1997 books. It stars George Clooney, Mark Wahlberg, John C. Reilly, and William Fichtner. The real-life perfect storm formed from a confluence of 2 weather fronts and Hurricane Grace, reaching Category 1 status with 75-mile-per-hour winds and causing $200 million in damage while killing 13 people total. The 6 crew members were Captain Frank William Tyne Jr., Robert Shatford, David Sullivan, Dale Murphy, Michael Moran, and Alfred Pierre. Their final radio message on October 28, 1991, was completely normal, giving no indication of disaster. The film shows the boat capsizing in a massive rogue wave, with Billy going down with his ship and Bobby surfacing only to drown without a life jacket. No survivors were found after a 10-day search covering 186,000 square miles, and the boat and bodies were never recovered. Only small wreckage, including an emergency beacon, was located. The film grossed $328 million worldwide, becoming the 8th highest-grossing film of 2000. This survival story shows how nature's power remains indifferent to human life, and sometimes, courage and skill prove insufficient against forces beyond control, with the family's real-life losses making this tragedy particularly resonant. Open Water. The 2003 indie horror delivers gut-wrenching realism by dramatizing what happened to Tom and Eileen Lonergan, a couple abandoned during a scuba diving trip in 1998. Written and directed by Chris Kentis and produced by Laura Lau, both avid divers, the film was made for $130,000 and grossed $54.7 million worldwide. Loosely based on the disappearance of the Lonergans at the Great Barrier Reef in January 1998, the real couple was left behind after a headcount error on their diving boat and wasn't reported missing for 2 days. The film stars Daniel Travis and Blanchard Ryan, using real Caribbean reef sharks during filming, shot over 2 years on digital video in the Bahamas, U.S. Virgin Islands, Grenadines, and Mexico. Characters Daniel and Susan are stranded 20 miles offshore after their boat miscounts divers, enduring jellyfish stings, shark attacks, dehydration, and sun exposure. Daniel dies overnight from a shark bite and blood loss. Susan, finding him dead, removes her flotation equipment and drowns herself rather than face the sharks while alive. Rescue boats are seen arriving moments too late in the distance. The final scene shows a fisherman finding their camera in a shark's stomach. The real Lonergan's bodies were never found, with only Eileen's torn wetsuit washing ashore weeks later. This survival story succeeds through minimalism, using the ocean's vastness to create terror where the horror comes from abandonment and the slow realization that help will never arrive in time. Cabin Fever. Eli Roth's 2002 directorial debut combines body horror with dark comedy as 5 college friends succumb to a flesh-eating virus. Made for $1.5 million and released on September 12, 2003, by Lionsgate, the film grossed $30.6 million worldwide. Roth co-wrote the script with Randy Perlstein in 1995. Inspired by a skin infection Roth developed in Iceland. Filmed in 24 days in North Carolina during late 2001 at Raven Knob Scout Reservation, the story follows 5 friends, Paul, Karen, Bert, Marcy, and Jeff, who rent an isolated cabin. They encounter an infected hermit who falls into the reservoir after the students accidentally set him on fire, contaminating the cabin's water supply. Karen drinks water first and shows symptoms within 8 hours, as rashes become bloody sores and flesh peels away. Marcy becomes infected through tea and later has unprotected relations with Paul, spreading the virus to him. Bert drinks water despite betting to only consume beer. Jeff survives by drinking only beer and hiding in woods, but police shoot him to death. Marcy's flesh peels off while shaving her legs before being killed by an infected dog. Paul mercy kills Karen with a shovel, and Bert is shot by locals. Paul gets dumped in a stream by a deputy, infecting downstream water. The final scene shows children making lemonade with infected water, implying an epidemic beginning. This survival story demonstrates how paranoia destroys relationships as effectively as the virus itself, with the ending revealing that the surviving character's smart choices cannot save him from violent containment efforts, and authorities' failures spread the infection into wider communities. The Gray. Joe Carnahan's 2011 survival thriller presents Liam Neeson, not as an action hero, but as someone contemplating self-inflicted harm who becomes forced to keep living even as death stalks closer. Directed by Carnahan and released on January 27, 2012, the film was based on the short story Ghostwalker by Ian Mackenzie Jeffers, who co-wrote the screenplay. Filmed in 40 days in Vancouver and Smithers, British Columbia during early 2011, with temperatures dropping to -40 degrees and real snowstorms rather than computer-generated effects, the film grossed $81 million worldwide. The story follows John Otway, a marksman protecting Alaska oil workers from wolves. The film opens with Otway writing about ending his own life to his deceased wife before a plane carrying oil workers crashes, killing most instantly, with 8 initially surviving, including Otway. Survivors must battle brutal Alaskan cold and a pack of gray wolves defending their territory. One by one, group members die from wolf attacks, drowning, freezing, and falls, with Diaz bleeding out while remembering his daughter, and Hendrik dying after falling into a freezing river. Otway ends up alone and accidentally stumbles directly into the wolf's den. The final scene shows Otway preparing to fight the alpha wolf by taping broken bottles and a knife to his hands. The film cuts to black mid-battle, with a post-credit scene showing both Otway and the alpha wolf wounded and lying together. Neither's fate explicitly shown, but both appearing mortally wounded. Director Carnahan urged Neeson to channel his grief over his real wife, Natasha Richardson's death, for emotional scenes. This survival story subverts expectations by delivering a philosophical meditation on death and what gives life meaning, with the wolves symbolizing death itself, always present and inevitable, making this a journey from wanting death to desperately fighting it, only to find no escape. By the way, if you're enjoying this, I post videos like this all the time. Subscribing would really help me out. Dawn Remake. Zack Snyder's 2004 remake of Romero's zombie classic appears to offer hope as 4 survivors reach a boat and escape the city, only for cruel final moments to shatter that illusion. Directed by Snyder in his directorial debut and released on March 19, 2004, this remake of George Romero's 1978 film stars Sarah Polley, Ving Rhames, and Jake Weber. A group of survivors barricaded in a shopping mall during a zombie apocalypse find their sanctuary becoming untenable and plan a daring escape to a boat. Most are killed during the escape, but 4 make it to the boat, including Anna, Michael, Terry, and Nicole. The film shows the group sailing away, appearing safe and hopeful. However, end credits reveal found footage of the group reaching an island that turns out to be overrun with zombies, with the group being overwhelmed and killed, their survival extremely unlikely. This survival story pulls a vicious reversal on audiences who believed these 4 characters had finally escaped, with the found footage ending during credits revealing no safe havens exist and the zombie outbreak proves truly global and inescapable. Cabin Woods. Drew Goddard and Joss Whedon's 2012 meta-horror film doesn't just kill its protagonists, but ends the entire world. Directed by Goddard, co-written with Whedon, and released on April 13, 2012, the film was shot in 2009, but delayed until 2012 due to MGM's bankruptcy. Made for $30 million, it grossed $70 million worldwide and stars Kristen Connolly, Chris Hemsworth, Anna Hutchison, Fran Kranz, and Jesse Williams. 5 college students go to a remote cabin, but it's revealed they're being manipulated by an underground facility for an annual ritual sacrifice. Each student represents a horror archetype, including virgin, athlete, whore, fool, and scholar, and must be killed in specific order to appease ancient ones, ancient gods imprisoned underground whose awakening would destroy humanity. Jules dies first as the whore, then Kurt as the athlete, then Holden as the scholar. Dana and Marty survive to discover the truth about the facility. Marty releases all contained monsters, causing chaos that kills facility staff. Dana and Marty deliberately run out the clock on the ritual, refusing to complete the sacrifice. Sigourney Weaver appears as the director, explaining the world will end if the ritual fails. The Ancient Ones awaken, a massive hand emerges from the ground, and the world begins ending. The final shot shows Dana and Marty accepting death together as apocalypse begins. This survival story takes the concept to its logical extreme, killing not just protagonists, but literally all of humanity, with the film's brilliance lying in using meta-commentary about horror to justify why everyone must die, arguing that a world requiring ritual human sacrifice doesn't deserve to exist. Living Dead Return. Dan O'Bannon's 1985 zombie comedy ends not just with all characters dead, but with the military destroying an entire town, ensuring no one survives. Directed and written by O'Bannon, and released on August 16, 1985, this offshoot of Romero's zombie films combined more humor with complete hopelessness. Starring Clu Gulager, James Karen, Don Calfa, and Linnea Quigley, the story involves a chemical from a military canister released in a medical supply warehouse that resurrects the dead. These zombies prove unkillable as shooting the brain doesn't work, and fire spreads the infection. The film ends with the military dropping a nuclear bomb on a Louisville, Kentucky suburb, destroying the entire town and killing all characters in the blast. Post-credit scenes show radioactive rain reviving more dead bodies, with sequels confirming the outbreak continued despite the nuclear strike. This survival story ups the ante by making zombies truly unstoppable, and ending with nuclear annihilation, suggesting no military response proves adequate against this outbreak, with humanity's most drastic solution only making things worse. Blair Witch. The 1999 found footage phenomenon reinvigorated horror while establishing the now common precedent that found footage films don't have survivors. Otherwise, who found the footage? Directed by Daniel Myrick and Eduardo Sanchez and released on July 30th, 1999, the film was made for $60,000 and grossed $248 million worldwide, becoming a massive cultural phenomenon. Starring Heather Donahue, Michael C. Williams, and Joshua Leonard as themselves, 3 student filmmakers document the Blair Witch legend in Maryland woods during October 1994. The group becomes lost and terrorized by an unseen presence over several days. The final scene shows Heather discovering Mike standing motionless facing a corner in an abandoned house before her camera drops as she screams and the footage ends. Opening text establishes their bodies were never found. This survival story revolutionized horror by creating a format where death becomes inevitable from the start, as the found footage structure logically requires everyone to die. The ambiguous ending, showing Mike facing the corner, referencing an earlier story about the witch's murders, leaves their fates terrifying but certain. Into Wild. Sean Penn's 2007 biographical drama tells the true story of Christopher McCandless, who abandoned civilization to explore Alaska's wilderness and died alone. Based on John Krakauer's 1996 non-fiction books of the same name, the film stars Emil Hirsch as McCandless. In April 1992, the 24-year-old ventured into the Alaskan wilderness with minimal supplies and experience, seeking to live off the land near Denali National Park. He took shelter in an abandoned bus that became known as Bus 142. Despite his idealism and determination to survive independently, McCandless struggled with hunting and foraging. In late July 1992, he attempted to leave but found the Teklanika River swollen from snowmelt. blocking his exit. Trapped and weakening from starvation, McCandless made his final journal entry on August 12, 1992. His body was discovered by moose hunters on September 6, 1992, approximately 100 days after entering the wilderness. Weighing only 67 pounds at death, he likely died from starvation, though some theories suggest plant poisoning contributed. This survival story demonstrates how idealism and lack of preparation prove fatal in unforgiving wilderness, with McCandless's death showing that wanting to survive and actually possessing the skills to do so are vastly different things. Aniara. Pelle Kagerman and Hugo Lilja's 2018 Swedish science fiction film presents humanity's survivors from a destroyed Earth facing slow death in the emptiness of space. Based on Harry Martinson's 1956 epic poem, the film stars Emily Garbers and Arben Kananian. The story follows passengers aboard the Aniara, a luxury spaceship carrying 8,000 colonists from an Earth devastated by climate change to a new life on Mars. After the ship collides with space debris and loses its navigational capabilities, Aniara is knocked off course and continues drifting into deep space with no way to return or reach Mars. The captain initially lies to passengers about their situation, claiming repairs are possible. As years pass and hope fades, society aboard the ship deteriorates, with increasing substance abuse, violence, and despair. Some passengers die from these causes, while others take their own lives. The ship's AI-like system called Mima, which provided comforting memories and experiences, overloads from absorbing passengers' trauma and shuts down permanently. The film spans decades, showing passengers aging and dying as the ship drifts endlessly through space. Eventually, all passengers die as the ship becomes a massive tomb floating through the cosmos. This survival story presents the ultimate inescapable scenario where everyone survives the initial disaster only to face inevitable death from the impossibility of rescue, demonstrating how hope's absence proves as deadly as any physical threat. If you found this valuable, consider subscribing so you never miss new content. Thanks for watching.